Hello and welcome. This is Nano Machine. We get some dialogue about how the demonic cult is made up of multiple clans and families. There are 6 of them, and they are the main clans, which are the Dark, Spring, Sword, Poison, Sound, and Blade clan. The Lord was bound by oath to marry a woman from each of the 6 clans to give birth to his descendants. Those descendants who were born in each clan were raised in their respective clans. When they reach a certain age, they will be admitted to the Demonic Academy. The Demonic Academy opens every 10 years, which is headed by the leading experts from the Magistrate. It was founded to train the best warriors of each generation. At a point in time, there was a period of unusual intense competition whenever several princes joined the academy. This intense competition is referred as the period of battles of heirs by the magistrates. Yo sees the doctor looking at him, and he thinks to himself that Beck is from the Poison clan and he needs to hide the fact that nanomachines are in his body. Nano tells him that the technology from this current era would not be detected. Beck thinks that Yo got help from someone and tells Jang and Yo that nothing is wrong with his body. He will still prescribe him with a tonic that will help him regain his energy. Jang thanks the doctor, and we see Beck leaving, and he asked him if he was leaving. Jang tells him that he will see him out. He tells Jang that it's fine and not to come out, but just to watch over the prince. Beck leaves the room and thinks to himself that it's very strange and asked how a person could change like that. A long time ago, he was sure that Yo was pushed out of the ranks because of his weak body and lack of knowledge of martial arts. Now, with Yo's current state of his body, he can most likely learn martial arts better than most other princes. He knows that he is an illegitimate child of the Lord, and maybe he pretended not to care for Yo but took an interest in it. He thinks if the Lord did secretly help him, then there's no need for him to acknowledge it. Beck says that the soon-to-be-opened Demonic Academy will be quite noisy, and then he leaves. We switch back to Yo, and he thinks to himself that he doesn't think they caught on, and the only reason he is still alive is thanks to Jang. Although Nano did heal him, if Jang didn't come and find him, he might have been killed. He then tries to thank Jang, but he interrupted him. Jang tells Yo that he is sorry, but he should go wash up first. He agrees, and then we see him in a tub of steaming water. He calls out to Nano and asks about the self-healing mode and how much does it heal. Nano tells him that it could heal any internal or external wound caused by an external impact quite fast. Blood loss or decapitation will take much longer since it requires cell division. He asked why Nano keeps on saying these things that are hard for him to understand. He then thinks to try out his self-healing. He grabs a knife that was next to him and slices his hand. He complains about the pain, but Nano starts to activate the self-healing on his left palm. He then looks at his palm and sees the cut beginning to heal. He finds it cool and starts to relax a little. He thinks that even though he saw it, it is still hard to believe, but now he knows that it works. He asks Nano if it could really use all that information that he sent to his brain. Then Nano tells him that he could use everything that is shown in the instructions. Yo thinks that it's good and he would try it out once he is finished with his bath. We see his body looking a lot more fit than when we first saw him. He tells Nano that it doesn't make any sense on how his body suddenly became more muscular and toned. He asks Nano if it did this to his body, and it replies by telling him that it reconstructed his body. He questions on the word reconstruct, but a lady comes in his room and tells him that she is there to dress him. As the lady is dressing him, Nano tells him that it's scientifically impossible to create something out of nothing, but it isn't difficult to reconstruct an existing part of his body. Yo says that the words that Nano chooses are complicated, and listening to him makes him feel like everything he has learned is useless. He asks Nano since its name is long, he wants to call it Nano, which is then registered as the name. He tells Nano that it's no fun, and then he thinks to himself what he should be doing now. He is looking at books, and Nano tells him to pick a book and flip through each page. He questions it and asks if that's all, and Nano tells him yes. He picks the only book that is related to martial arts, which is about blood points and chi. The 3 Jason book is a breathing method that is for training the mind and body, but even if a person practiced this for the rest of their life, it will still be hard to reach the lowest level. He thinks that it's just the best to read the book about blood points and tells Nano that he is starting. He starts to flip through each page and then tells Nano that he is finished. Nano says that it successfully scanned the book called Blood Passage and it is attempting to transfer the information to Yo's brain. He questions if it copied all that information from the book and then proceeds to accept the transfer. The information transfer is complete and we see Yo covering his mouth, but Nano tells him that he will get used to it. He asked if Nano is worried about him, but it tells him that it's just stating facts. He calls Nano an inconsiderate jerk and then thinks of what to do now. Nano tells him that if he wishes to use the new knowledge, he will have to think about it to bring it up. He then thinks of the blood points and he starts stating the information on it. He is then shocked about all the information he just said and thinks that it's crazy since he didn't just memorize it, but he could fully understand it. Nano tells him that it transferred all the information after it corrected all the errors inside the book. Hey, really fast, if anybody is watching till this point, let me know in the comments if you want me to call Nano a him or a she. I'm pretty sure Yo called him a he, but I'm just asking because, you know, it's not an actual person, but yeah, just let me know in the comments. Yo thinks of the errors and questions on the stuff that was wrong. Nano tells him that based on its information, it corrected an error about the blood points. He can't believe what Nano said and thinks that he can learn and master martial arts faster than everyone. He smiles and says that the candidates of the 6 clans have mastered many fighting techniques since they were breastfed. After watching all those bastards, he still couldn't master the 3J Sim method. There aren't that many martial arts books in his study, but he heard that the Demonic Academy has many books. With Nano, Yo will become stronger the fastest out of everyone at the academy. This will be his current goal for now. We switched over to the Chamber of the Air candidates at the South Castle of the demonic cult called the House of Bakmajang. We see a person talking about how he sent all of them just to get rid of one person, but all 5 of them are dead. He asks the red robe person he is talking to if that makes any sense. The guy tells him that he thinks someone secretly helped him and calls him Prince Mukium. By the way, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. I just tried my best since I couldn't find anything about his name, so yeah, just bear with it. He turns around and yells at the guy for calling him by his given name. The guy then apologizes and calls him Prince Shion. Mukium thought Yo was a bastard that was easy to kill since of his low blood, but it looks like he has an ace up his sleeve. He thinks to himself that he even tried to get rid of Jang and then questions if someone else is protecting him. He says that he didn't want to get his hands dirty, but now he has no choice but to kill him at the Demonic Academy. He calls Yo's full name while clenching his fist with a smile on his face. We see Yo laying in bed while he thinks that he couldn't fall asleep since he is nervous. He gets up and opens his window and asks if it's morning yet. He says that today is the day he is joining the academy. He then spots Jang training with his dagger. Yo asked himself if he should have secretly learned Jang's dagger techniques. He says no since the people from the 6 clans watch him and won't leave him alone. He thinks of an oath that he made with himself to not learn any martial arts until he entered the academy. Nano speaks up and asks Yo if he would like to learn Jang's movements. Yo is surprised at what Nano just said and asked if he could scan other people's movements. Nano replies and tells him that he can. He asked if it can scan Jang's martial arts training and transfer it into his head. Nano tells him that it is possible and it also has many martial art techniques that it could already transfer over to him right now. He wonders to himself if it's even okay to steal Jang's technique without permission. He then disregards that since he is going to the academy in the afternoon and he doesn't want any regrets. He also doesn't have the time to think about what he can do to protect himself. He tells Nano to start scanning, which it then activates the movement scan. Jang continues to train while Yo and Nano are watching and scanning him. Nano told him that it has been half an hour since it started scanning and it's now complete. Nano then sends the information to his brain, but Yo thinks that it was more bearable than yesterday. He is speechless and then asked how could this be and how is this possible. He then runs over to grab his dagger and he thinks that he could use Jang's dagger skills. He then looked over at the window and said that he should be more careful since he doesn't want Jang to see. He closes the window and starts to get into form. He He takes a deep breath and starts to unleash the movements. With just one step, he ended up breaking the floor where he stepped. He thinks that it's the same as Jang's training and wonders if he could skip mastering it and completely ignore all the steps. Nano speaks up and tells him that while the movement scan was active, it also analyzed the muscles. He then asked if Yo will accept the transfer, but he doesn't understand. Nano tells him if he doesn't get the transfer of the muscles, but suddenly Yo falls to the floor. He says that his whole body is in pain suddenly and then asks Nano why is this happening. It tells him that when someone trains constantly, your body starts to form muscles that are right for the movements. Since he hasn't developed those muscles, it will damage them instead. He tells Nano to explain it more simpler. Nano starts to translate the language to match his current level, but Yo gets annoyed of what Nano said. The translation is completed and tells him that since he hasn't trained like Jang for a long time, his body can't keep up with the movements that were sent to his brain. It tells him that he must go through muscle simulation to familiarize himself with the movements, and after the transfer he will be able to do those movements fully. Yo says that it was easier to understand, but it's still a little hard. Nano asked him if he would like the language set to the lowest level, but Yo tells it that he got most of what it said. He asked Nano if he gets this transfer he wouldn't be in pain. It tells him that he is right and asked him if he would like the transfer. Nano also says that it takes every nano machine in his body, which will take a couple of hours. He thinks if Nano starts it now, he will still have time before he must leave, and then tells Nano to start it. It tells him that the transfer comes with a lot of pain, so it will put him to sleep. Yo asked if it hurts a lot, and Nano tells him that there has been over 1 million people who fainted. He questions himself if he could do it, and Nano asked him if he would like to try it without anesthesia. He tells it that if he can't handle it, then put him to sleep. Nano agrees and starts the transfer. Yo thinks that he was too nervous and said that it just tickles, but out of nowhere a sharp pain goes throughout his body. Nano then starts to put Yo asleep and he falls to his bed. We switch over to Jang in the kitchen and he is tasting the food he is making. He thinks that it tastes as good as the other neighborhood masters. He asked himself if he should prepare something special for today, but then he said that he would just make something simple that Yo likes. He says that it has already been 5 years since he learned how to cook for him, and back then he wasn't even a good cook. We then see Yo's mother asking Jang to take care of Yo. It has been 5 years since Yo's mother died from eating food that was laced with poison. Today, Yo is now entering the academy and he asked if Lady Hua can protect him from heaven so he could survive and have another meal. He then heard something coming from Yo's room and quickly rushed over. He opens the door and he sees the prince laying on his bed. He comes over and checks his pulse and questions on what could he be doing that could make this happen. He then looks over at the floor and questions the footsteps. Jang goes over to the footsteps and says to himself that Yo has been watching him train for at most 2 years and he has already caught up to his training that took him 20 years. Thank you all for watching and I hope you all enjoyed this video.